in attendance today address some of your questions. Before we get started, I just want to say a brief thank you to our supporters, which are Pfizer, MERCK, Breast Cancer Wellness Magazine, Brothers Helping Sisters, and BlackHealthMatters.com. Without these supporters, we can't do the work that we do. So we really thank our corporate partners, again, Pfizer and Merck, and our media and community partners, Breast Cancer Wellness Magazine, Brothers Helping Sisters, and Black Health Matters. Before I get started, I want to just say that we have an agenda that is up on the screen right now. If you'll take a look, you'll see that we have some wonderful panelists. We're going to have a great dialogue. Later into the presentation, I will share some information about a new initiative that our partner Pfizer is rolling out to get folks excited about getting their mammogram. So we'll talk about that. You'll hear a message from our founder and CEO and some interesting new program that we will be relaunching, and a little bit more information as the afternoon develops. So without further ado, I'd like to start by doing some introductions of our featured panelists. And I'll start first with Dr. Vivian B. She is a board certified surgeon who completed her breast surgical oncology fellowship training at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas. Dr. B was recently named Chief of Breast Surgical Oncology at New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital and is the Assistant Professor of Surgery at Weill Cornell Medicine. So she is a busy, busy lady. She is also a breast disparities researcher, educator, community outreach leader, entrepreneur, and best-selling children's book author. Dr. B came from a very humble beginning and background. She was born and raised in inner city of Washington, D.C. as the middle of 7 children. I'm an only child, so I don't even know how that feels with 7 kids. She's committed to serving underserved populations, and Dr. B attended Morehouse School of Medicine, whose mission was to serve the underserved. There, she was met with multiple awards and recognitions for her dedication to eliminating healthcare disparities. After matriculating from Morehouse, Dr. B continued on to Medical University of South Carolina, General Surgery Residency Training Program in Charleston, South Carolina. While in Charleston, Dr. B continued her work in addressing breast cancer disparities through research and health initiatives, presenting her research at major meetings across the world. And Dr. B was then awarded the highly coveted Breast Surgical Oncology Fellowship position at MD Anderson Cancer Center right here in Houston, Texas. She then served as a breast surgical oncologist in the Division of Breast Surgery at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Cooper, in Camden, New Jersey, where she chaired the inflammatory breast cancer program. Dr. B's primary research efforts have focused on modifiable risk factors and outcomes in ethnic populations. In the community, her primary initiative has been to bridge the gap between multidisciplinary breast cancer treatment and community barriers. She is doing just this with her most recent multi-institutional community outreach grant through the American Cancer Society and through Pfizer, one of our partners. This grant was specifically designed to address breast cancer disparities in African-American women through increased breast cancer screening, community, and patient education, as well as navigation. Recognized as a rising star, and we definitely can see that as with all these accomplishments, and a top physician in her field, Dr. B was awarded the prestigious American Medical Association's National Minority Quality Forum's Brain Trust Top 40 Under 40 in Minority Health for her dedication to community outreach, research, and her commitment to eliminating breast cancer disparities. In 2019, she was also named Best of Healthcare by South Jersey Business Magazine. She is the recipient of a host of awards and accolades for her accomplishments and commitment to her patients and the community. She is garnering recognition in the press as well. She has served as a guest speaker on NPR and has been featured on NBC, the Washington Informer website, the Black News website, as well as the Catalyst and I guess it's Brooklynier newspapers, just to name a few. In conjunction with being at the forefront of patient care and breast disparities, Dr. B remains passionate about the community. She is the founder of GLOSS, Girls Loving Ourselves Successfully, a program focused on mentoring middle and high school girls. She is also the proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, who is one of our national partners who we are so excited to partner with, and they gave a major, major donation this year during our Stop the Silence walk. It was $22,000 specifically for mammograms. So we're very excited and appreciated. And it's nice to know that you're a proud member of the distinguished ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. Understanding the importance of representation and diversity in books, she founded Chocolate Kid Chronicles, publishing her first children's book in the series. And it's an Amazon bestseller called Please Don't Touch My Magical Hair. So we'd like to give a warm welcome to Dr. Vivian Jolie B. Thank you, Dr. B, for being here.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start with your presentation, and then I'll come back and introduce our survivors who are going to share their story.
Okay, very, very good. So I want to first thank the Sisters Network. You know, you are like family. And while you're in Texas, I miss my Texas family as well. It's always a pleasure to be here to speak on breast cancer. Can you see my slide? Probably not, because I didn't share. 1 second. Try that first. Good to go?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay. 1 second. The computer was delayed a little bit. Okay. All right. So let me just go back 1 slide. Okay. So thank you again for that warm introduction. I think I have just a few minutes, so I'm going to go through and talk about breast cancer statistics. We'll talk about breast health disparities, COVID-19 related disparities. And then, you know, when we talk about disparities, we also have to be mindful that we're in a pandemic. And we sort of have to think about survivorship during this pandemic, and then a call to action. So just a little bit of statistics. The estimated cancer deaths in the United States, when we look at, actually, let's go back to incidence in the United States, breast cancer is the #1 cause of cancer in women. And then when we look at the cause of death, it's #2 for women in the United States. And nationwide, the breast cancer mortality rate is unfortunately 40% higher for Black patients compared to white patients. And when we look at just the US Census Bureau, nearly 42 million Black Americans live in the United States, and this makes up about 13% of the total population, with the top states being New York, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and California. Breast cancer statistics, this is a slide that I often use and like to show. On the left, you'll see that this is the incidence. And when you look at the top lines, white and Black, the two different shades of pink, you can see the incidence is about the same. But then when we look to the right, where you see the red line, which is non-Hispanic Black women, and then the blue line, non-Hispanic white women, we see that there is a gap in sort of the survivorship rate, meaning, or the mortality, I should say, meaning Black women, that red line, have a higher mortality than their white women colleagues. And this is about by 40%. And so I often get the question, well, why is this? This is certainly multifactorial, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But one thing that we do know is that back in the 1970s, 1980s, with the introduction of a hormone pill or blocker, if you will, tamoxifen, we know that white women saw the better benefit as it relates to survivorship and mortality rates with that introduction. But unfortunately, tamoxifen didn't work as well because, as we'll talk about, Black women are more likely, twice as likely, to be diagnosed with a triple-negative breast cancer. And so when we look at just this hormone positive versus hormone negative disease, we see that that white women, that's the blue line, have a higher rate of having hormone positive disease. And so that's why that tamoxifen is more effective, versus to the right where you see the red line, which is hormone negative disease. This is higher in Black women. And when we look at breast cancer incidence by tumor biology, when I say tumor biology, that means the triple negative breast cancer, the hormone positive breast cancer, the HER2 positive breast cancer. We know that age for age 20, age 20 to 49, and even age 50 plus, that Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with a triple negative breast cancer. So again, age for age, Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with a triple negative breast cancer, as illustrated by the red block. And then when we look at breast cancer survival by stage and race, again, we see the same sort of unfortunate disparities. And I'll draw your attention to the red line, that's representative of non-Hispanic Black women, that stage for stage 1, we have a lower survival, stage 2, lower survival, stage 3, lower survival, as well as the stage 4, lower survival. So when we look at the breast cancer burden of Black American women, we know that there's higher mortality, advanced stage distribution, younger age, and a 2-fold higher rate of triple negative breast cancer. So I say all of this, but we have to keep in mind that over the last, more than a year, right? So 15, 16 months or so, COVID-19 then came and devastated and ravaged our community as well. And so I want to talk about the intersectionality of breast cancer disparities in COVID-19. This is New York City during the the first month of the pandemic, where we were the epicenter for the virus. And you can see the streets are empty, which never happens in New York, but this is what we were seeing nationwide. But guess what? Breast cancer was still happening. We still had patients who or people who were if not diagnosed, there was cancer there, and we had survivors. And I often say breast cancer did not stop when COVID started, and we have to keep that in mind when we talk about treatment and survivorship, when we talk about quality of life for our survivors, when we talk about diagnosis, we have to keep that in mind. So just a little talk about sort of COVID-19, the virus. We know that SARS-CoV is the name of the virus, and COVID-19 is the illness that it causes, and it's caused by transmission, which is why we have the recommendation to wear masks and social distance and keep your hands washed. And if we just look globally, we know, and this is about a month old, we know that globally it has caused over 3 million deaths in the United States, over 500,000. But looking at it a little closer, nationwide, Black people have died 1.4 times the rate of white people. And for people like myself who have been engaged in decreasing disparities within health within the breast community, we knew that when COVID happened, there was a concern that we would see some similar disparities because unfortunately, our community gets hit the hardest. And so we look at the model of social determinants of health to better understand why these inequalities exist. And social determinants are the conditions in which people live, work, learn, and play. And I often, I know that that my sisters at the Sister Network know that I don't hold my tongue when it comes to racism and how it affects our community. I realize I'm a woman of color, and it is my duty as I sit at the table to speak on racism and to speak on the causes in which we are here. Back in the day, we would blame, the mortality rate, the higher mortality rate in Black women because of, things that we may have done or not done correctly. And then we realize that that is not the whole story. There are so many other factors. It's so multifactorial. And so racism plays into socioeconomic disadvantages. It plays into environmental exposures that we are subjected to. It plays into stress. Think about the social injustices that we experienced, that we often experience, but the world got a preview of it over the last couple of years. And so when we look at the framework for social determinants of health, we know that inequalities are due to conditions, the structural inequalities and social injustices that we see as a community. Again, the institutional environments, laws, regulations, policies that, that may not be written for us. We look at living environments, food deserts that, we often say eat healthy, but how do you do that if you live in a community that doesn't offer fruits and vegetables? Disparities are due to consequences, risk factors, biomarkers that you have no control over, and then cancer comorbidities. So, so breast cancer disparities in the COVID era, social economic disadvantages, we had loss of employment, right? Which means oftentimes loss of health insurance. And so as a community, we have to think about that. As a system, we have to think about that. We think about decreased access to care, and I'll talk a little bit about how we dealt with that in the digital divide. I already talked about stress, but stress is a real thing. And I think, we have to be very thoughtful about addressing the stresses that we experience just as Black people. And not to mention, now we have a diagnosis of breast cancer. Health behaviors certainly contribute to health outcomes, but can be affected by or caused by racism. Access to health services, I'll talk a little bit about that actually next. So, when COVID happened, we switched over to telemedicine. And a lot of different organizations said, "Oh, this is great. We're moving to telemedicine." And I'm not knocking telemedicine; it has worked for some patients. But colleagues and myself got together early on in the pandemic and said, there's actually a divide. Not everybody has access to telemedicine. Not everybody has, the capability to get on an iPhone and add the applications that are necessary for telemedicine. So we have to be very thoughtful and careful about this. And so, what about access to testing and screening? Well, back when COVID started, we had to make recommendations, on the American College of Radiology made recommendations to halt screening and services for mammograms. Now, how does that look when, as we have resumed a lot of what we are trying to do, we have to get the word out to our community that, yes, you have to go and get a mammogram. We have to get the word out to our survivors that, yes, you should continue with your screening as recommended, but do it safely. So one of the things that we did in the community actually to address this very issue was we switched quickly over to a virtual platform. And we actually had navigators to help those identified in the community have access virtually, since we were unable to go physically into buildings. And we talked about breast health through a breast health series. We also conducted surveys as we partnered with many faith-based programs in Brooklyn, and this is through the Pfizer grant that I received, and that gave us some insight into the barriers that we have within our community. So the way that we narrow the gap is we complete care, and we improve access by including navigators, addressing the digital divide, and continuing the mammography screening, and then we educate. Now, what about as survivors? What do you do to protect yourself? And young survivors, right? Which is a beautiful thing. But I think there are some things that we need to talk about. The one, I have to give a plug, because I do speak on the vaccine and the importance of thinking about getting the vaccine. And I think it's a personal decision. As I say, I am a wife to a Black man. I am a daughter to a Black woman. And, in our community, there is mistrust. And I think we have to talk about those issues and really provide the necessary information so that everybody can make an informed decision. But as survivors, I do think that you should have a conversation with your clinician and decide whether proceeding with a vaccine would be best for you. I would recommend it strongly. And then your breast care during the COVID era, continue to see your specialist. And now I think it's better. People are opening up, systems are opening up, but be sort of on top of it. I know it's easy to slip back and not do so, but continue your cancer treatment. Now, treatment considerations that as a surgeon, I always like to sort of throw out there that, yes, we know that there are two different types of surgeries that we often group patients into: lumpectomy, which is breast conserving surgery, or mastectomy. But it's important for you to make certain considerations as you talk to your physicians, even in the COVID era. You want to make sure if you're receiving a lumpectomy that it's minimally invasive, that the surgeon is being thoughtful about hiding that scar, because as from a quality of life standpoint, this is something that you have to think about in the future. We often will recommend or offer a local tissue rearrangement. And then for mastectomy, it's nipple sparing, skin sparing. There are certainly reconstruction considerations. In the COVID era, what we're doing actually at Weill Cornell and the New York Presbyterian system is enhanced recovery after surgery, so ERAS. And that is a program designed to improve your recovery and decrease the stress of surgery. So it's being really thoughtful pre-surgery, during surgery, and after surgery to improve your pain, to address nausea before it happens. And I think this is important for our community and for you to be aware of such programs that exist, and so that you can ask your team if they have these things available. And again, it's a really thoughtful process, and I can talk about it a little bit more during the Q&A if needed. And then from a medical oncology consideration, of course, medical oncologists, my colleagues, will offer hormonal therapy for those who are hormone positive, systemic therapy, which depending on the type of systemic therapy you receive can cause hair loss. Considerations that you should think about or ask about is the cold cap. Colleagues of mine are actually going to roll out a special cold cap that really focuses on Black women's hair. And so I'm excited about this trial that will be conducted at New York Presbyterian, Brooklyn Methodist, so that we can really say this works for Black hair. You know, everything we do, we have to make sure that it is not just generalized to everybody, but does it work for us? And then this is my mentor, my friend, Dr. Lisa Newman, who has played an integral role in the Sisters Network, and our colleague, Dr. Melissa Davis. And I bring these two up because I adore them, one. And she calls me her daughter, which is so true. So I feel always honored. But they're doing excellent work in closing the gap and working to combat racial disparities in breast cancer outcomes through research. And so know that, you know, when we talk about these disparities that exist, you know, sometimes I think we do that, but we don't often talk about also what we're doing to combat that. And my colleagues and I are doing just that, looking at research, looking at triple negative breast cancer, so that we have a better idea of how to treat triple negative breast cancer better, right? So people are working at it, and I do have hope that in our future we will have better answers. And then quality of life considerations: continue to find joy, peace, meaning, hope, and love every day in what you do, whether it's spiritual, whether it's walking out in the park. Wear your mask, that's fine. And maybe you're vaccinated now and you don't have to, but continue to have sort of mindfulness. If you love music, listen to it. Find joy. It's getting warm. Meditate. I actually meditate with my son, who needs it more than I do. So that's my little trick to get him to breathe. Just breathe, baby. So, but meditate is important. Find psychosocial support. The Sisters Network is an awesome support system. And I can't say that enough. And then, you know, if you can, exercise, eat vegetables and fruits, and decline alcohol when feasible. My call to action is to just simply be empowered, my sisters. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. B. I appreciate that. That was a wonderful presentation and overview. Before we get to the next part of our program, where we talk to some of our survivors, because we've heard the medical expert give us a lot of great information, but now we want to hear from the survivors who really walk the walk, and to share their personal stories and some suggestions on how they navigated their personal breast cancer journey. For those of you who've just tuned in, this is the breast cancer webinar series that Sisters is hosting, called Patient Education and Empowerment Virtual Webinar Series. Today's topic is Young, Black, and Living with Breast Cancer Under 50. We are very excited and very appreciative of everyone taking time to be here today. Again, my name is Colleen Allen. I'm the moderator, and I want to again thank our supporters, which is Pfizer and Merck, Breast Cancer Wellness, Brothers Helping Sisters, and BlackHealthMatters.com. So now I'm going to move into introducing our young survivors. I'm going to start with my friend and survivor, who used to live in Houston, but she's moved to Dallas, but we won't hold that against you, Crystal. But anyway, Crystal Brown Tatum is a native of San Antonio, but she now resides in Dallas, as I just mentioned. In 2007, Crystal was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer at the young age of 35 and 1 month after her wedding. When she was diagnosed, Crystal says to say she was devastated and lost would be an understatement. After feverishly searching the internet for readily available resources for women of color, she was disappointed to really not find the information she was seeking until she remembered that Karen Jackson was a breast cancer survivor and had started a national organization called Sisters Network. And so she immediately reached out to Mrs. Jackson, who took her call and stayed on the phone with her for over an hour and provided a lot of expert advice, guidance, and support. Armed with the knowledge and inspiration from that initial call, Crystal proceeded fearlessly through her aggressive treatments. She also was led to establish a Sisters Network affiliate chapter in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we thank you for that, Crystal, back when you did that. After a military relocation out of the area and a death of the chapter vice president, the chapter dissolved, but not without making an impact and a noticeable improvement in breast health awareness in the Shreveport community. Crystal continues her advocacy work with Sisters Network through her ongoing work with Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute in Washington, D.C. As a patient mentor and reviewer, she attends the annual meeting and brings the patient and community voice to the table where evidence-based research decisions are being made. She also has shared her story with her elected officials at the state and national level. Not one to shy away from accountability, Crystal took full responsibility for her late-stage diagnosis and made it her mission to educate others about the importance of early detection. Her story has been featured in numerous media outlets, including Self Magazine, Ebony, Essence, and many others. She's also been a guest on Dr. Oz show, so that's really awesome. She is the author of Saltwater Taffy and Red High Heels, My Journey Through Breast Cancer, which details her treatment journey from diagnosis to remission. She wrote the memoir When She Could Not Locate a Book about by a Black author online or in her community. To date, the book has been sold across the globe, and she continues to be sought out as a motivational speaker on the topic. She says Sisters Network has provided so much tangible and measurable support to her and her friends throughout the years. From bill pay assistance to clinical trial opportunities, the organization has navigated Crystal on her healing journey. She remains grateful to Mrs. Jackson and every sister in the network who provided a sounding board and crutch when she needed it most. Crystal is an honors college graduate of the University of Houston with a BA in communications, and currently she is a human resources manager with the Dallas Summer Musicals, as well as a freelance journalist and public relations consultant. Thank you, Crystal, for being here. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to introduce Keisha very quickly, and then I'll have you start with your story and then move to Keisha to share her story. And so Keisha, thank you so much for being here as well. See, we get it done by any means necessary. It looks like Keisha is in her car. And so we don't play. When they get the call, they come and they show up. And so Keisha's a prime example. She is rolling in the car. All right. So Keisha is a 47 years old, young, and a 2-time triple negative breast cancer survivor. She currently lives in Houston, Texas with her son, Jalen, and works for Methodist Hospital. She recently earned her bachelor's degree in healthcare administration and a master's in healthcare management, while also battling for 6 years ongoing chemotherapy, iron and platelet infusions, radiation, physical therapy, and 16 surgeries spanning from November of 2014 through March of 2021. God bless you, Keisha. Keisha's breast cancer journey began on November 19th, 2014, when her life was changed overnight, and she was in complete shock to find out that she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Keisha says the challenges for her was trying to remain strong for others when she knew she personally wanted to break down, and her will to live for her son and trying to manage her appearance changing from losing her hair. She says when she lost her hair, she felt like she lost herself. It reminded her so much of the Samson and Delilah story, how Samson felt like he was defeated when he lost his strength when his hair was cut off. She says during her breast cancer journey, she was always trying to keep her loved ones from crying. She started calling herself the Black Charlie Brown so others could laugh, which gave her strength to keep fighting and to never give up. After being diagnosed 2 times with breast cancer and undergoing rounds of chemo to find out that she had ovarian cancer after her doctors performed a double surgical procedure for breast reconstruction and partial hysterectomy was indeed mind-blowing. Keisha says all she could do was thank God it was caught in time before it metastasized. Going through her breast cancer journey is still challenging on some days from the ongoing side effects of the chemo medicine, physical therapy session to reduce lymphedema, neuropathy, and nerve pains in her breast from the mastectomy and the DIEP flap, is that how you pronounce it? From the flap. Some of the things that have kept her going during and after her journey is sharing her personal testimony, surgical experience, and mentoring others that have been recently diagnosed. Being able to provide helpful tips on how to get through chemotherapy while working and being a full-time student and a mother was Keisha's way of telling cancer and other cancer patients they too can defeat cancer while living their best life. Keisha also believes that being in tune spiritually with her feelings has given her the ability to enjoy life and never take it for granted. She is grateful God chose her for this breast cancer journey while continuing to share with other women the importance of getting your mammogram and self-care. Sharing her feelings, thoughts, and breast cancer images with other patients while surprisingly built Keisha's self-confidence. She truly believes that her breast cancer journey has shaped her into the woman she is now. It was an excellent opportunity for growth to become a better mother, role model, and mentor for someone along without getting out of her comfort zone. Keisha says she finds strength in this scripture, Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's Keisha's story. Thank you, Keisha, for being here, and Crystal for being here, and Dr. B. Ladies, if you could start, Crystal, just kind of touch on a little bit more about your story so that the participants can hear, and you may put questions in the chat. We will be taking questions to the panel. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. So my story actually began in August of 2006 while putting lotion on. After a shower, I felt a little nodule in my armpit region. And I remember it didn't hurt. It felt like a pea. At the time, I was dating my husband, so I asked him to feel it, and he didn't know what it was. I went back to my mother and my brother, who are both registered nurses. They disregarded it, said it was probably the result of using cheap deodorant. It was probably just a swollen gland. I just so happened to have a sister-in-law who was an oncology nurse in Vermont, and she felt it and said, you really should see a doctor about that. And she was just so serious with her tone that I've never forgotten that moment. So fast forward 9 months, I was watching TV with my daughter, and I didn't realize I was playing with that nodule, and she was 13 at the time. And she said, Mom, you're always touching that thing. Go see a doctor. So I went to see a doctor in Shreveport. And he told me initially when he walked in and took a look at me, he thought to himself, she's not going to have breast cancer. She's probably being over dramatic because I appeared to look young and healthy. And he was joking. But then when he felt under the arm, I noticed his whole demeanor changed. And he said, I'm going to be right back. And he went and did an ultrasound. And he went from being very playful and engaging to very serious. And he said, you need to have a biopsy. I'd never heard that word before. I didn't know what that meant. And fast forward, I remember when I received, I heard the words, it's breast cancer. It was over the phone. My grandmother was diagnosed when she was 80 years old. And I do not believe she was triple negative because she took tamoxifen. And unfortunately, she did pass away at the age of 85. So she never got to see me go through my journey. And my grandmother made the decision to end her life. And so I've always carried that in my heart, that the strength that my grandmother needed, I really feel like it was given to me to get through my journey. I had a lumpectomy, and I remember not wanting to go through chemotherapy. And I remember my phone call to Mrs. Jackson. It lasted over an hour. And I was really surprised that the founder of this organization would even call me back so quickly. You reach out to other presidents, founders, CEOs, and you have to go through, multiple people. They won't even get on the phone with you. But Mrs. Jackson stayed on the phone with me for, it had to be at least an hour, almost 2 hours, and talk me through everything. And she really helped me overcome the fear. We talked about the hair, Keisha, at great lengths. I've always had very long hair. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to lose my hair. I'm not going to do chemo. And that was, I can look back and say it was silly, but at the time it was scary. It was my reality. I didn't know how do you face the world bald? It was scary. So I had 4 rounds of very aggressive chemotherapy. I had what's called a TEC protocol, Taxotere, epirubicin, and Cytoxan. And I opted out of the last 2 cycles. It was a very personal decision as to why I opted out. And I had 37 radiation treatments. Last month, I did reach 14 years in remission. And the number one question I get from triple negative survivors is, what did you do differently? And for the sake of, I hate to sound cliche, but these are my truths. So not only do I take good care of myself and exercise and eat healthy, I really do live a stress-free life. And when I say stress-free, there's stress all around us, right? I was furloughed from my job. You mentioned I was at Dallas Summer Musicals. I was laid off last week. That is stressful, but you prepare for those things by always having a plan B. I don't really engage in drama, so I protect my mental health at all costs. And I really believe that that has contributed to my overall well-being. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a miracle worker. But I do know that by adopting a healthy lifestyle, physically, emotionally, and mentally, that has sustained me to be able to embrace any future challenge that comes my way. You're on mute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That was, I mean, wow, that was really insightful to hear some of the things and challenges that you faced and how you overcame them. Keisha, do you want to share a little bit more about what your journey was like, and give some feedback as well? Is she?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing? My name is Keisha, and I was diagnosed when I was 40 years old, months after I turned 40. My story is, when I was getting dressed, because everybody knows me because I was the turn-up girl. I always had fun. I always had a party to go to. So I was getting ready to go to a family function at this particular time when I noticed like a size of a golf ball tumor in my breast, but I didn't know what it was at that particular time. And 2 sizes like that was underneath my arm that looked like acorns. And which when I went to work on Monday, I had spoke with my nurse manager because I work at Houston Methodist Hospital in the surgical department. And so she was like, hey, this don't look right. You need to go ahead and get this checked out. So she had a breast doctor come and look at me. She tried to schedule me an appointment, which didn't work out. So I had to connect with another doctor in the medical center, Dr. Donna Spiegel. And it was like expedited between her and my oncologist, Dr. Charles Osborne. So make a long story short, they had to do emergency biopsy, and they found that it was going into stage 2 triple negative breast cancer. Went through 2 times of being diagnosed with the triple negative breast cancer, along with, like I said, being diagnosed at the same time with ovarian cancer as I was going through chemo. So I had a lot of setbacks from getting my surgeries done due to low platelets, due to low blood count, just overall my health and wellness. I'm not going to say I didn't take it serious. I felt like when I got diagnosed, I was too busy trying to live for my son versus trying to live for me. I don't know if that makes any sense. I wanted to make sure I looked good for him, and, you know, all the changes that my body was going through. Like, one of the things that I asked was, I'm going to lose my hair. And so my doctor, she said, yes, you're going to lose your hair. And I broke down literally. But after I had to do a come to Jesus meeting with myself and realize that my life was more important than losing my hair, that it was going to grow back. So reading the Samson and Delilah story, as you mentioned before, that's what really gave me strength. And my grandfather, which was a minister, the same day that I had got diagnosed, and he said, you need to come over right now because we're going to pray. And I said, okay, I'll come over after I'm done with everything. So after my doctors had said, well, you know, you're going to do this and go through that. And I said, and she said, you're going to lose your hair. You're going to go through some changes with your feature, your body. You're going to have a lot of setbacks. And I said, but at the end of the day, I'm going to win, because God already told me I serve an awesome God, and he's a healing God. So I knew from day one that I was healed, and it was just a part of going through the journey. Like I said, every setback has a greater comeback. Going through this breast cancer journey since 2014, and I just finished my last breast cancer surgery as March 1st. I mean, I'm blessed to be a walking testimony, to share my story with a lot of cancer survivors, and currently walking a lot of breast cancer patients that recently just got diagnosed with their journey, connected them to resources so they can get the proper treatment that they need. And as far as helping them pick out the surgeries that they want to have, I go as far as showing them what my breasts look like, all the incisions, from me having to have a hysterectomy, going through my breast cancer journey at the same time, and knowing that I had to keep my ovaries because of the triple negative, because I can't do the hormone replacement. It was a lot of adjustments and everything that I had to go through. But at the end of the day, I never stopped living because I believed in God. And he told me since day one that I was going to be healed. So I kept my faith and I just kept pushing. And, going through everything, I continued to stay focused, steadfast. I stayed in school, never dropped out. I got my master's and bachelor's while going through my breast cancer journey. And I'm not sure yet, but I'm in a process of maybe going to nursing school. And so, because I want to be an oncologist nurse. And so it's just like a lot of things are changing, but I felt like God put that in my heart just recently. That's where he wants me to be. And like, I'm going through all these interviews and everything. I keep getting denied. But he keeps saying, I'm telling you what you need to do. So I'm in the process of doing that as far as going back to school to be a nurse. And I want to specialize in oncology. And so the thing is, I want to tell the other breast cancer survivors that's on here, and, just keep living. That's all you need to do. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but continue to keep living and keep smiling, because there's a lot of people that's out there watching you, and you don't realize how many people that you are constantly giving strength to. I get people that inbox me daily, walk up to me. I'm at a restaurant, out to eat, wherever I'm at with my friends. Sometimes I feel like I'm a celebrity, because they're always like, hey, that's Kiki the Survivor. And they were just like, you don't know how much you make me smile, just from your journey, your walk. But at the end of the day, keep living. We defeat cancer, and cancer do not defeat us.
Absolutely. I see some folks are putting questions. Thank you so much, Keisha, for that presentation. I see some people are putting comments in the chat. I would encourage you to ask our panelists, Dr. B, Crystal, or Keisha, any questions that may be coming to mind. we want to be here as a resource for everybody who has taken time to come on and learn more about this particular topic. I want to also take a moment and thank one of our board members who I know is on, taking time to watch today, and that's Judy Boston Stanford for being here today. So I do appreciate that, and want to shout out to a lot of our chapters that are on today. I know that we have members from the Dallas chapter that are on. New York, I think I saw someone from Chicago, Central Virginia, Greensboro, Triangle, those are in North Carolina. We have our Florida chapters in we have a chapter in Austin. So please, we have resources around the country, ladies. Please tap into our boots on the ground. These ladies are volunteers. They are giving their time and working and representing Sisters Network and providing programming right in your general communities. We're always open to new chapters. We are in the process of onboarding some new chapters, and I think it's important that you all know that we are a resource, not only here in Houston, but nationally around the country. So if there's any, River Rouge, Michigan, we see that you're in the house. Thank you so much. So are there any questions that for the panelists or panelists, is there any other information you'd like to share with folks? Because I see a question right here. Someone said that they had a hard knot under their armpit thinking it was from deodorant, and that she's due to see the doctor next month. Listening to you, it's guiding me to address this concern to call my doctor. Thank you. Okay, so
Yeah,
so
I wanted to jump in to my aha moment when I knew that I wanted to start a chapter. Some friends and I were having a support group meeting in a coffee shop, and one of the older ladies bent down to get something, and I noticed she had a tube sock in her bra. And I didn't want to embarrass her, but I pulled her aside afterwards and asked her, was she waiting on a prosthetic? And she didn't know what I was talking about. And she had had a double mastectomy. And I said, well, you qualify for bras and prosthetics, right? And she said, what are you talking about? So we called her doctor Monday, and I spoke on her behalf. And the doctor said he thought his nurse had gone over that with her. She's an older Black woman. And I said, no, your nurse didn't do that. And so here's this woman, who can't really afford the right type of bra, who had a tube sock. And it was just seeing that disparity firsthand for me. I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And I just wondered how many other older women go to these doctors and those type of kind of subtle, I think it's discrimination or bias or prejudice, why no one thought it was important enough to tell her that she could have something a little more dignity, right? A tube sock in the bra. We can just do better than that for our patients.
I agree 100%. And Crystal and Keisha, what's striking to me is you both found your cancer. You both felt something. And, I think we have to take a moment and address that. You both were young. And I just want to sort of speak to the fact that, you may hear in the news, or you may hear your primary doctor advise your family members to start mammography screening at a later age, older than 40. And they may say, don't get it every year. You don't have to, you can get it every other year. And this speaks to the fact that that does not work for us, period. And I always pause so that we let that sink in. We held a CME symposium, week-long symposium, to really educate community physicians across the country about the disparities, so that they understood that while there are certain guidelines that do exist that give them provisions to say, if you're an average risk woman, you can start your mammograms at, say, 45 or 50. That we in the breast community, and particularly those who address breast disparities, do not support that. But we do support starting at the age of 40, or if you have a family history or are tapped to be sort of high risk, maybe even sooner. But to your point, you were young. There was no reason. Your grandmother was in her 80s. And so, I also encourage, although sometimes guidelines are iffy, to still check your breast and underneath your armpits. And if you find something, do not chalk it up to just being X, Y, and Z. It's better to, and it could very well be something else, right? But it's better to get that checked out. And I'll go one step further. When you go to your physicians, while not to speak ill on the medical community, when we see someone younger, sometimes we in the community will say, oh, that's nothing to be concerned about. And so I also want to empower you to push and ask, well, do I need an ultrasound? Do I need a biopsy? And if you still are not comfortable with that, go get a second opinion. And and that's me coming from a physician. I'm saying, be your best advocate. You are your best advocate. And just speak on discrimination. It absolutely exists. And it absolutely irritates and aggravates me when I see that we are not offered the things that would improve our quality of life, right? In a survivorship, as survivors. And so thank you for being that advocate, but we have to do better. We have to call a spade, and we have to sort of, continue to educate. So that's something I'm going to include in my CME symposium this year when we talk to community physicians and nurses, that they have to be thoughtful about that for all.
Thank you, Dr. B. One of the things that Sisters Network continues to do is our breast cancer assistance program. For that very reason, we want to make sure that money is not the reason that you don't get your baseline mammogram, and money isn't the reason that you can't help pay for your rent or buy groceries. We're not rich because we try to do our best for our community, but the breast cancer assistance program has been successful, and we've been able to open it every year. Each year I pray that we're able to open, and each year since 2006, we've been able to help African-American women in breast cancer. So yes, this is necessary. All of us, what we do on a daily basis to help women live longer and live better. It takes all of us, and we need more to get involved. Thank you all.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know Mrs. Jackson, who was just speaking, she is our esteemed founder and CEO. She is a 28-year, 4-time breast cancer survivor. So she has walked that walk and that journey for many, many years, and continues to help many women navigate their own personal breast cancer journeys. So thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for your comments. I see someone just mentioned in here, it looks like Pamela. She says, I didn't know my insurance covered bras and sleeves until I went through the second time. Is that common for the insurance companies not to really share that information?
You have to ask the question, but if you don't know to ask, you won't get that answer. We have a pamphlet that's called Questions to Ask Your Doctor, and it tells you what things to ask each doctor, your oncologist, your surgeon, any treatment that you're going to have. And we include the fact that you should get an ultrasound. That's not in any literature so far that I've read in 28 years to recommend that the ultrasound go along with your baseline mammogram. So you start off with what you need. So all these different things are held back. I don't know what information is being shared to others. I can only tell you that if we don't have the knowledge to ask the question, we won't get the services that we need. So knowledge truly is power.
Yeah. Do any of our, Keisha, do you have anything you want to add? Keisha? Can we take Keisha off of mute, please? Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to give an example. I have a friend that reached out to me this past week. A lot of things is, a lot of doctors, when you go to the ER or even just go to your doctor, they assume it's breast cancer. And sometimes it may just be a cyst. So one of my friends, like I said, she reached out to me and she went to the doctor, her sister did. And they told her, oh, automatically, oh, you have breast cancer. I said, well, how can they say it's breast cancer if they didn't do a biopsy? And most of the time when they do a biopsy on you, they're going to put a clip there so they can target that area, once they do the mammogram and the ultrasound, all that stuff like that. So I told her, I said, you need get a second opinion and don't just go by what the doctor said, since he actually didn't really touch you. He didn't do a biopsy, no type of screening whatsoever. And I say it's always good to get a second opinion if you're unsure of something that's going on with your breast. And I asked her, I said, where did she feel the lump at? Is it ductal, underneath the breast, because people don't know the different things to look for. I said, does it have discoloration? Is it leaky? Tell me, is it look like it's bruised? Is it hard? Is it moving? And she was like, no, yes, no. But to make a long story short, I gave her the information to the Rose, and I told her that she needs to call them and follow up because she didn't have insurance. So a lot of people are afraid to not go to the doctor because they don't have insurance. But it's so many resources out there for us in the Black community, not just us together, that will, provide, provide healthcare or whatever like that for us when it comes to, getting our breast and our mammogram done. Because like I told him, I said, Miss Karen, she did a free mammogram, had the bus come out like maybe 2-3 years ago. I was out there volunteering. It's so many resources that's out there. All you have to do is ask, And my thing is, with me going through my journey, I want to continue to advocate, and I do a lot of it, but I just don't post it because I leave it up to the breast cancer patients that's going through it, to talk about or share their story. But as long as I'm there to help them from the beginning to the end, that's my purpose and my passion. But at the end of the day, make sure you follow up and get a second opinion. Don't just go with the first opinion that the doctor tells you. It's very important.
Thank you, Keisha. There was a question from Marissa Youngblood. It says, it also seems that they give African-American regular screenings versus digital. I had a regular screening in April 2019, no problems. In December 2019, I found a lump. Can you speak on the difference? Dr. B, could you maybe speak on that a little bit about the regular screenings versus digital?
Yeah, so I am an advocate for the digital, the 3D, because it has the slices that it cuts through the breast, gives the radiologist more information, and information is power. But there are breast imaging departments that still do the regular screening, and there's still physicians who write referrals for those regular screenings. And not that they're bad, but going back to what Ms. Jackson said, if you're going to get particularly the regular screening and you have dense breast, or if you're going to get the regular screening, have an ultrasound added. But you're right, the 3D is a great tool, and adding that ultrasound is really key for young women with dense breast. And then as far as insurance coverage, my understanding is that insurance does cover it. Now, back in the day when it first came out, there were issues with that. Yeah. But Ms. Jackson, you can correct me if I am incorrect on that.
You are absolutely correct. And as an organization and as a personal person, just recently, last month, I had my normal yearly checkup, and I was in the middle of getting my mammogram. And I just asked her, I said, oh, this is a 3D, isn't it? She said, no, this is a 2D. I said, stop. Stop. And she had to start all over. She had to get permission. But see, I was assuming I'm at a high grade, facility. Somehow, someone made a mistake. There is no way I should get a 2D. So it never ends. It just never ends. So you have to be diligent about what's going on, and a 3D is necessary.
Right. So I want to be mindful of time. I have another question from Keisha Jones, and she's our Wisconsin president. Isn't that right? Wisconsin? Yeah, Wisconsin. So she said, should breast cancer survivors request ultrasounds with mammograms every year, even when doctor says regular is okay and looks good compared to last year? I know Mrs. Jackson's feeling about that. Let's see what Dr. B has to say.
I agree. And yes, so the answer is yes. And I'll go one step further, and I have to be careful with this one, but also have a conversation as a survivor with your physician about the utility of an MRI. And I will say that I have written about MRI use, and it does cause extra anxiety. And so we have to be thoughtful about it. We shouldn't just go ordinate for everybody, but have that conversation. But yes, you want the ultrasound, you want the mammogram, and immediately after your treatment, after you've had surgery, so you had the lumpectomy and the radiation, you should get a diagnostic mammogram. And some people say for 2 years, every 6 months. Some people say the first one should be diagnostic, but at the very least, you should have a diagnostic after your initial treatment. And yes, an ultrasound is useful.
So in keeping with our agenda and time, I just want to have one more question that I think this is a very good one. It says, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 33 years old. I have a daughter who turns 30 years old this year. When should she inquire about receiving a mammogram? I think that's a really fair question to ask, and one to be very concerned about for your daughters.
She said she was diagnosed, oh, sorry, okay, 33, and her daughter turns 30, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we say 10 years prior to the diagnosis of your first degree relative. So being diagnosed at 33, your daughter at 23 really should start having the conversation, or not even the conversation, having breast exams and the conversation about high risk screening. So she's due. Now she's got young breasts, and so this is where it gets tricky. The follow-up question would really be, is there a genetic mutation that is associated? And you don't have to answer that, Latanya, but I say that to say if there is a genetic mutation that causes, so for example, BRCA, that MRIs should be also considered, and she should have biannual breast exams by a physician who is well equipped to look after her. So yes, she needs to be looked after.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. B. The person who's asking about a recommendation in San Diego, if you would contact our office or in the chat privately, send your information and we will see what we can do to answer that question about doctors that don't take insurance, or see where we can kind of help out. Let me just move to the next part of our presentation if there's no more comments from our panelists at this time. Shashi, if you can please bring up the presentation. I think since we're talking so heavily about mammograms and the importance of 3D, our partner Pfizer is rolling out a very important initiative. It's called Get It Done. I love the slogan, the message. It's simple, it's clean, it's direct. It's telling us to get it done, get our cancer screening. It's important. Let's go to the next slide. With what's gone on over the last year, as Dr. B noted, a lot of women were not getting their screenings. So decreased significantly due to COVID-19. Even though the impact of the delay is still being evaluated, one thing is certain: it is important that people talk to their doctors about returning and getting their cancer screenings and follow-up appointments. So Pfizer is really doing their part to roll out this initiative. They have some information right here about the impact of the pandemic, according to the Associated Press. Multiple studies suggest that fewer cancers were diagnosed last year, likely because of less screening. About 75 cancer organizations recently urged a return to pre-pandemic screening levels as soon as they're safely available and possible. The National Cancer Institute talks about the obstacles and opportunities for screening. Even after screening returned to a normal schedule, the percentage of new patients getting screened remain low. So it sounds like people, even though we're back to somewhat of a normal schedule, people are still not as enthusiastic about going back to the doctor. So we're really, as an organization, sisters, along with partnering with Pfizer, to encourage our women and our community to please get it done. Go get your mammograms, get back on your schedule, take responsibility, and make sure that you're making your health a top priority. Next slide. Shashi, next slide. So as I said, the program overview is called Get It Done. It's empowering cancer survivors to speak with their doctors and keep their cancer screenings and follow-up appointments where it's safe to do so, of course, by providing resources and tools to help guide those conversations and prepare for appointments either in person or via telehealth. Next slide, please. If you want more information about the Get It Done campaign initiative, you can go to getcancerscreened.com. There are tools available in both English and Spanish, so that you can build your confidence in going to get your screenings. There's some messaging from cancer survivors. I believe one or maybe both are employees of Pfizer. There's information about in-person appointment guides, some suggestions on how to be safe and to navigate that process. And then the telehealth appointment guide. All of those information resources are available at getcancerscreen.com. And again, it's brought to you by Pfizer. We really think it's important. Next slide. Is that the end? I think that's the last one. To go ahead and get in there, get your mammograms. It's important. It can save your life. Early detection is the key. And again, it's a simple slogan, but an important one. Get it done. Go to getcancerscreen.com so that you can get some more information. We thank Pfizer for taking the lead in really pushing that conversation and to get people to take action on their health. Moving to our next area is a message from our CEO. She wants to make some comments. Again, I introduced her earlier. It's Karen Eubanks Jackson. She's the founder and CEO, 28-year breast cancer survivor, 4-time breast cancer survivor, I should say. She's also an author, so anybody who's interested, please go to Amazon.com. She has her new book, her memoir called In the Company of My Sisters, My Story, My Truth. And it just chronicles her breast cancer journey and also the journey of her founding Sisters Network. And it's a wonderful story, and I encourage everyone to try to pick up the book if they can. Mrs. Jackson, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This has been an exciting webinar today, and I feel very blessed to be able to give you even more exciting news about what Sisters is planning and how this will impact your lives as young survivors. Shashi, can you bring up the PowerPoint? The Young Sisters Initiative, A Guide to a Better You. And Crystal, I think that we didn't talk about this, but you were one of the first in 2011 that we brought this initiative out. And we are re-evaluating how we are going to relaunch this particular initiative because we are ready now to make this happen. So next slide. Sisters Network, relaunching the Young Sisters Initiative. It is going to be a virtual platform. And as I mentioned, this is exciting because as a national organization, our purpose has not changed, and we still believe in saving lives and providing knowledge that addresses the Black breast cancer survivorship crises. It is still our focus. Next slide. So we have decided that with the power that we have as an organization, that we are going to have a renewed direction in the advocacy field. We have always wanted to do this. But as you know, as a young organization, initially for the first couple of years, it was all that we could do to handle the affiliate chapters and to handle the quality of life for all women. But now over the years, we have seen that the struggle for young survivors has not changed. It is still devastating, and we want to be a part of the advocacy movement to make a difference. So because of our 27-year legacy and that we've earned the trust of the community, we are reinventing this particular launching of the Young Sisters Initiative. So we are very excited about that. And I purposely wanted to announce this. This is a pre-announcement now. So you ladies, you are hearing it for the first time that this is going to happen. And we want all of you who were young when you were diagnosed, but are older now, still you are a young survivor because you started in that position. And we want to have your voice heard. And especially like our presenters today, they are phenomenal women. They are the future of the organization. They are the future of our community. We have to pull together and be involved in a new direction with sisters. And I hope you can all join us because your participation does make a difference. The next slide, please. This young initiative, African-American are still being diagnosed, as I said, at a younger age. And we are going to be identifying women. We say 50 and under, but statistics say, and everyone else in the movement talks about 45 years and younger. Let me get this. We are going to be launching the Young Sisters Initiative because the time is right. And after this presentation, there's going to be a poll up for you to say yes or no to joining Sisters Network. I'm going to put the poll down right now, Josh. And joining Young Sisters Initiative and answer the poll question. But I'd like to read this inspirational quote. Life is too short to wake up with regrets. So love the people who treat you right. Forget about ones who don't. Believe everything happens for a reason. If you get a second chance, grab it with both hands. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said life would be easy. They just promised it would be worth it. Please, the next slide. You can accomplish, and what we can accomplish, the sisterhood and service of the organization, it depends on the involvement of the new Young Survivor Initiative, you joining with us. And as I said, it is a virtual platform. So we're not going to be like the affiliate chapters, which is doing a wonderful job, which is the boots on the ground. These are going to be executive committee positions where you are the person that is involved directly on a platform, on a virtual platform. This is going to be a healthy community for young survivors living longer. We plan to provide support and informational resources for the young survivor and their families. We want to gain insight into the lives of young survivors through the sharing of information and the collection of knowledge. We will provide an avenue for the young survivors to be a part of change, to provoke action in the area of legislation. That's our goal. Advocacy has been a missing component in the movement of Sisters Network. We've known this for all these years, but we are now in a position, we are big girls and we're wearing big girl pink panties, and we plan to make a difference, and we need you to help us decide in what areas we can make the most impact. What is going on in your community that you feel through Sisters we can make something happen. We have the position, we have the power. If anyone knows about our national creed, in unity there is strength. Sisters has the strength. In strength there is power. We're in a position with the power, and now we need to do the action and change. That's where the initiative comes into play. We are at the point of change. So help us have the action so that we can all live a better quality of life. Take the poll questionnaire and answer. We are anxious to hear whether or not you are going to be involved. If we don't get the right answers, we won't be doing this. How's that?
We're just trying to gauge everyone's interest, and we're looking forward to that initiative. So Shashi, if you could put up the poll, I'm gonna finish up kind of wrapping some things up, some housekeeping. Again, I'd like to thank our panelists. Dr. B, thank you always for taking our call and showing up for us. Crystal, thank you so much for showing up and sharing your beautiful testimony and your courageous journey. Keisha, girl, your courage is just, it's amazing, and it was so inspiring to hear your story. And thank you for sharing the beautiful scripture that you kind of guide yourself by. It was very touching, and I think it resonated with a lot of people. So we thank you for showing up. And again, I'm just so impressed that you showed up in the car. Like it's amazing. It just it just says that the dedication to the organization. When you got the call from Mrs. Jackson, you still came, and by any means necessary. And so we appreciate everyone for being here today. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, supporters, Pfizer. We can't do things without our supporters, MERCK, Breast Cancer Wellness Magazine, Brothers Helping Sisters, and Black Health Matters. And most importantly, we can't do it without our chapters, who are the boots on the ground, our tentacles in the community. Those ladies are out there working hard. We thank you again for all that you do in New York, in Central Virginia, Southeast Virginia, Tidewater, Virginia, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, River Rouge, Michigan, Chicago, Austin, Dallas, Texas, Greensboro, and Triangle, North Carolina. And shout out to the ladies who are coming on in Ohio, Georgia, and Philadelphia. If you're interested in starting a chapter in Houston, for Sisters Network, please contact our national office and we can talk to you about the process. There is an onboarding process, but we always like to have you a new chapter so that we can touch the community. Again, thank you. You see our sponsors and supporters. We thank you again. A couple of things that are coming up, and I think you can put the poll up, Shadala, that'll be fine. We're going to close out in a few minutes after you take this quick poll. We will have some more webinars coming up. Our next one will be in July. It is July 17th. You'll get information about that. It is called Black Women in Clinical Trials. Very important for us to be involved in clinical trials. I know that there's a lot of concern and discussion about hesitancy of participating in clinical trials, but if we don't participate, we don't get the information, we don't get the results. So we do need to have a candid conversation about what it's about, why we need to do it, and where we can get involved. So look forward to that information. In October, we will be holding the State of Black Breast Cancer Crisis, a national town hall meeting, a virtual town hall meeting. We will be bringing together some of the great medical experts who are working in the field, elected officials, some breast cancer advocates and allies. And we're going to have a real conversation about what we consider a crisis with Black women and breast cancer. We want to talk about it, but we want to be about action and what's those next steps really going to be to start making a difference in the lives and saving lives of women. So without further ado, Shashi, if you'll put up the poll, I think I've wrapped up everything. I thank you ladies for coming on again. And I thank everyone who took time to participate and ask those very important questions to our panel. Thank you.
Okay.
Is she going to put the
Thank you.
poll?
It's still up. The poll is still up.
Yeah, okay. So if we can get, I always shoot for 100% participation. I know that it's a quick poll, so shouldn't take you too long. And we'll get that finished up. Again, Sisters Network is here to be a resource. If you go to our website, sistersnetworkinc.org, we'll be happy to have all this information up. This webinar will repeat and be posted on our YouTube channel, as well as on our website. We try to keep our resources as current as possible. We have a wonderful team I'd like to thank for taking time to work today. Shadala Jackson, who is our Zoom expert now, and our program manager, national program manager, Bridget Holden, who is our public relations consultant, and Bernadette Darns Jackson, who has helped on every webinar and anytime we need her to help with managing the chat and anything else that we do. So we thank each of you for taking out time on Saturday to be here. It's important. Is the poll complete?
Yes, the poll is complete. And I'd like to mention that our BCAP program will open on Monday the 17th. So make sure that you spread the word that the free mammogram, we have rent and utilities and groceries listed. So let the community know that the program will open on Monday.
Right, and we'll be sending out some information. It'll be posted on our website, on our socials, as well as emailed out. And again, the mammograms, we're really pushing for folks to get it done, like Pfizer said, and Sisters Network wants everybody to get it done. And Dr. B, we couldn't do it without our Sigma Gamma Rho sisters who in a good way.
And Crystal is Sigma Gamma Rho too, so I have my soror here.
No, I didn't know. Very good.
And we take it very serious, yes.
Well, your sorority and your sisters in Sigma Gamma Rho, they showed up and showed out and surprised us with that phenomenal donation so that we can allocate it towards mammograms. And we're looking forward to rolling that out with a special mammogram application aside from the BCAP application. We feel it's that important that it not get muddled into the BCAP financial assistance side, but
No, we'll give it to them.
focus on that. So we'll be getting that information out. We encourage everyone to tell your friends, sisters, mothers, aunts, grandmas, and, everybody else that we have mammogram funds courtesy of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. And we have financial assistance courtesy of ASI and some of our other supporters. So please, we look forward to continue to serve. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be blessed. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.